2 seconds. Okay, so we're recording now. So Chelsea, the floor's all yours, really.
Right then, let me just share my screen. I'll just go in present mode, hold on.
All right.
You can see and hear me okay? You can see my screen, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm not actually sure what's in this presentation. I hope it's good. I just pulled one that I'd done a few weeks ago, but this is going to be a little bit about my kind of story of building InnovateHer. So before we go into what InnovateHer does, I wanted to start with why we exist. And some of you might know some of these stats already, and we know what it's like within the tech sector in terms of gender and other minority groups, but I thought I would kind of highlight that here. So currently only 19% of technical roles in the UK are female, just 2% of them are from ethnic minority groups as well. By 2040, this is a mad stat, and it is estimated 1% of the sector will be female, and that's because of the growing rate of tech jobs that are out there currently. So it's quite powerful, but also quite shocking. We have a lot of work to do. And then when we look at the next generation, so only 20% of computer science GCSEs are taken up by females. That's about 10% at A level and less in higher education. But then there's a huge issue in terms of schools actually offering computer science. So nationally, about 40% of schools actually offer computer science. There's a reference to Manchester there, 42% of schools offer it there. And then only 9% of students take it, and of that, very few are female. So there's a lot to do specifically with the pipeline, and that's a lot of the stuff that we do is we try and inspire these young people to take subjects that are related to technology, or if not, then try and learn some skills through the work that we do, because you know the subjects themselves aren't the be all and end all. It's the what you do and learn around them that actually is probably the special bit. So I will tell you a little bit about our history before getting into what InnovateHer does. So I'll go a bit more back than this actually. So when I'm from Wales, and I left in 2008 to move to Liverpool, and I was there to study just marketing actually. It was marketing, media and cultural studies at university, which I didn't learn much whilst I was there. It was more about the experience, but I was really passionate by the end of it around digital marketing, and I'm quite a creative person, so I felt like digital was definitely something that I should explore. And when I was there, I got a number of jobs, and one of them was in a tech company in Liverpool. And I was doing their digital marketing, but then realised that I was the only female there. So I started to explore that a little bit. And even though I didn't face any direct sexism or anything whilst I was there, when other women entered the business, I did witness it quite a lot. And when I spoke to women around the area, there was a lot of that going on. And when I was doing my research, I realised that there's so many barriers for women getting into the tech industry that I just really wanted to do something about it. So whilst I was in that role, I started a Twitter account and called it Liverpool Girl Geeks. And it was just a bit of a passion. And it was the aim of it was for me to inspire young people or young women to get into the industry. And it grew to 10,000 people pretty quickly. I didn't really expect it to, but a lot of people in Liverpool wanted this kind of initiative. Women from the age of 18 to 65, I think our oldest woman that was on one of our courses came along, and we started working with all of them across the age groups to try and get them into the tech sector. And it kind of grew too big for me, and because I was working 2 jobs at the time. And in 2015, it got a bit too much, and I thought, right, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to continue to do it part-time, or am I going to actually dedicate myself to this and make a real impact? Because we were finding that it was getting a little bit too demanding for us at the time, because we were in full-time jobs. So in 2015 and 2016, I met my current co-founder, Jo, who has about 10 years experience on me in terms of being in technology. She's witnessed very similar kind of experiences in terms of being a woman in tech. And she said, right, I want to join you. I'm going to quit my job and let's just go and do this full time. So we did. We come up with a business plan. We set up a social enterprise, and we started testing a lot of projects that we could sell to partners in that work in technology, and that meant keeping it free for young people. So we started testing a number of programs for teenage girls. We did about 4 or 5 different programs to see what kinds of things they were interested in, what worked, what didn't work. And then alongside that, we tested an approach to selling to partners. And quite quickly, we started working with companies that like Co-op, Sony, Sky, BT. They were all pretty interested back then in, and they still are, in this gender equality in tech initiative. So they got on board pretty quickly, and that meant that we could sustain ourselves to continue to test and then build something that was a bit bigger than the Liverpool Girl Geeks community.
Chelsea, out of interest, how did you test these things? What do you mean by test?
It was very haphazard. So we literally just pulled together programs between us, me and Jo, and marketed them to girls in Liverpool. They come along, and we kind of assessed every single bit of the process, got all of their feedback on day 1 through surveys, feedback in week 8, because it was 8-week programs back then, asked them what they liked and didn't like about the program, and we had our own analysis as well in terms of how we delivered it and all of that, and what kind of we felt and we saw during them sessions. They were all live. It was much easier to do that actually when it was face to face. We also surveyed parents, and we surveyed teachers and things like that. So after the 4th iteration, I think we decided that, because we did one in Tech for Good, which was actually a lot of UX, a lot of design, prototyping, all that kind of thing. We did one in games design, we did one in web development, we did a bit of a mad one in music technology, where they had to learn Sonic Pi and learn to code. It was a bit mad, but they were amazing. But it was the Tech for Good one that really made impact, because it was quite broad in terms of tech skills. So they were getting to learn a lot of different skills, but actually bringing ideas to life through prototyping and that kind of design journey from ideation and audience to prototyping and marketing it. They got to do all of that throughout the program. So that was the one we wanted to roll out. And we started thinking about, coming back to this, so we started thinking about a brand that wasn't associated with Liverpool, even though we're from here, we've been here all along, we love it. and we wanted to take it to Manchester and beyond. And as soon as we started thinking about taking Liverpool Girl Geeks to Manchester, and we started talking to people, they were like, no, we don't want anything to do with this, it's got Liverpool in the name. And it was really shocking for us, because we didn't even think about that in terms of any rivalry, but we definitely witnessed that a lot in them days. So we decided to change the name, mainly because we were ambitious and we wanted to work in cities and towns across the UK and beyond. And then also the Girl Geek bit of the name was, I don't know, like there was a lot of Girl Geek communities across the UK, and people used to ring us up and say, can you do this here? And we were like, well, no, because we're not Bristol Girl Geeks or whatever it was. So we come away from that as well. And InnovateHer was born in 2017, and this was a really nice project because we worked with an organisation in Liverpool called Uniform. They're an amazing brand and design agency who developed the brand with us, and we developed it also alongside the girls themselves. So we worked with about 20 girls within a focus group, and they picked the name, they picked the branding and all of that. We had mood boards everywhere and different names across the office and Uniform, and they actually picked everything that it was about, which was a really nice process, and that's something that we continued to do throughout InnovateHer when we design stuff. So after that, it's been a bit of a blur, to be honest. I'm on a massive learning journey myself in leading a team, and you know, having a responsibility, because I've never had to manage people in this way or lead a team in this way, or a business. So it's been a massive learning journey. We've launched across, well, mainly in 3 cities, but actually now we've reached about 23 towns and cities due to the pandemic. There's been a lot of opportunity there for us, although it was the biggest challenge last year because we lost a few members of the team, and we had to pivot the business entirely because we were delivering everything face to face. And to support the communities, we had to deliver that online. And when you're working with 13, 14-year-olds, trying to deliver them a good experience safely is one of the hardest, most challenging things that we had to overcome, because obviously safety is the most important thing when you're working with that age group.
Chelsea, you mentioned that you know, you're learning every day, and you probably haven't got sort of vast amounts of experience in particular, I suppose, business decisions and situations that you might need at times. How have you navigated those things? We've done a lot of work in the group on personal values before.
Yeah.
Do you ever run off, like, I don't know, gut feeling, your own values, if something feels right or something feels wrong? Do you often find that's an important part of your decision making process?
Yeah, I definitely rely on my gut a lot, but also I've always made sure that I've got really good advisors around me. So I started all of this really young, and I would have never had the confidence in myself really to deliver on some of the stuff that we've delivered on. So I've made sure that I've got mentors, and it's been a thing that's kept InnovateHer going from the get-go. So we've always had a board. We've literally just got a new board, which is an amazing board. We've got 2 non-exec directors who are our advisors and our backbone, really. Me and Joe, my co-founder, have always had like personal mentors and friends that we speak to quite often about various things. And then more recently, and we're getting better at this, like this has been a long process, knowing how to even seek that advice and get the right advice, because I've also, when a few years ago, I'd also get a lot of advice that I didn't actually need, because people think that you need a lot of it. So there is like a bit of a balance as well. about seeking the advice that you actually need. But yeah, I think this year we've looked at that kind of advisory stuff really closely, and we put together a really solid brief which included things like values and what we expect and all of that, for a new board, and we've managed to get brilliant people for that. And it's the same with our advisors, really. I think we've just analysed or talked about exactly what kinds of things we need, and then try to find people that fit that, and set that expectation from the beginning. Does that make sense, Giles?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that you recognise the importance of surrounding yourself with good people.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's, and hopefully something that a lot of the guys in the group can relate to, something I've related to. Also, it's important to actually know when you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people as well.
Yeah, and that used to happen a lot. A lot of people would say, men and women, they'd come up to me and go, "You need this," and I'm like, "Well, no, actually, I don't." And I think it's easy actually to go along with this advice. So I think just sitting down and writing what exactly is it I need, and what people do I want to work with. What kinds of people do I want to work with to make this happen? I think that's really important. But it's so different at different stages in life. Like, I had a wobble a few weeks ago, and I think for me, like, the pandemic, even though we'd been in it for a year, it had just hit me, and all at once. I think even if now that there's a roadmap of getting out and all of that, I was just like, oh, I don't know whether I can do this anymore in terms of like the business and stuff, and am I doing it right? And I think I need a coach, like a bit of a life coach or confidence coach, because I'd really lost it. And then I just spoke to a few people in my network who really tried to like big me up, and then give me some really, they give me some really great advice, and told me to write down my triggers and write down when I'm feeling low. And, you know, we are in a pandemic and anxiety is at a high in a lot of people at the moment. So try not to beat yourself up and all of that.
So
And
good advice, all that cognitive advice. You know, if you have a certain thought, it can lead to several other things, and that's when you need to change the thought process so it doesn't lead to other things. And it's a good way of doing it. But again, you know, it is surrounding yourself with good people that can give you good advice. And also, when you put yourself out there and you put effort into other people, to get that effort reciprocated is so important. So it sounds like you got exactly the sort of effort, reciprocation you needed.
Yeah, and I've realised that it's fine to be really vulnerable. And I think as a leader, people tell you that you shouldn't be emotional or vulnerable and you need to be tough and all of this. But actually, I don't think you need to be at all. I think the best conversations I have with partners even is when both sides are just really honest and open, and that vulnerability comes out, and that trust then occurs. So, and that happens with my team, you know, like I have 5-6 people in the team that really need me at times, but I need them as much as they need me, and we're all quite vulnerable with each other, and it's a really nice like environment to be in.
I think that's where connections are made, vulnerability. You know, people then can let down the barriers. I was listening to an interview the other day with Elon Musk, you know, one of the probably biggest leaders in the world at the moment, and he was saying he doesn't try and be right all the time; he just tries to be wrong less often. Yeah, and he's not saying he's got all the answers. He just said, I just tried to be wrong, not to be wrong as little as I can, basically. And it's interesting how those barriers have been broken down, particularly in the last year, because we have all been vulnerable.
Yeah, of course. It's been so hard, isn't
it?
We can come back to this, and I'll leave time. What time do you want me to finish? Because I could.
Yeah.
Will they?
We normally we normally try to wrap it all up by about 9 o'clock, and so people can sort of get back to their families and stuff.
So if I talk for another like 10 minutes and then we can go to questions.
Then can have a bit of a CNA, Jesus, I order my Q&A and a bit of a chinwag, that'd be great.
Yeah, right. Okay, so now I've put in a bit about what InnovateHer actually does. So our mission is to get girls ready for the tech industry and the tech industry ready for girls. It's a bit wider than this now. We're working with non-binary students across the UK as well, and the tech industry is every industry now, so it's quite broad, our remit. And our aims are to increase awareness of opportunities in tech for young people, including increasing their confidence. We boost the digital skills economy and talent pipeline by working with the organisations and the young people and trying to bridge in that link. We engage teachers and parents, and we create a cultural shift in the industry by working with organisations on their inclusion strategies, because we don't want a young person to get into the industry and then have a shit time because they are culturally not ready for them. So we work kind of on both ends of that. So we do three things mainly. We do a virtual educational program, which is entirely online now. We're launching an e-learning platform in April, which we've been working alongside young people with. It's been an amazing experience that one of our team members, Leanne, I know you know her, Giles, is working on. So she's been leading loads and loads of focus groups with them to find out how best they learn online and what kinds of things they like and don't like and whatnot. Then, as I said, we've got this partner program. We've currently got about 24 partners in that. And within that, we do a lot of learning around diversity and inclusion. So we have bi-monthly workshops, we have a health check that we run with them to kind of assess the organisation and see where they're at, so then we can help them further. We give them access to our jobs board and all of that, and that funds all of our educational programmes for young people, meaning that it's completely free for them. And then finally, we do campaigning regularly online. So if any of you follow us on social media, you'll just see us basically campaigning constantly for gender equality and trying to get people on board, either to be ambassadors, which you're more than welcome to sign up to, and join us to help this next generation kind of thrive within the industry. So that's the three things that we do. And this is kind of the impact to date. So we're not massively about the numbers, to be honest. We're more about the quality of the intervention, and we've always worked with smaller groups. So traditionally we'd work with 20 girls or students across 8 weeks. So, we weren't getting massive numbers really, but we have worked with about 1,600 girls across the last couple of years. We will be able to work and reach more because of the online platform now. It's going to look a little bit different, but we still want to try and remain that integrity and quality within the work. We've hosted about 50 odd events. We're quite keen on events. We love doing events offline and online. And as I said, we've reached now 23 towns and cities because of the pandemic, which is crazy because I think we'd reached about 3 cities before then. Here's some of our students. So Beth, who's this wonderful woman here, she joined one of our programs in 2016 whilst it was Liverpool Girl Geeks, and she had very low confidence. We struggled getting her into the classroom, to be honest. She wouldn't really leave her parents' car. So we really had to kind of coach her into feeling safe enough to learn with us across the 8 weeks. And this is one of our learnings that we had. And by the 8th week, she was standing on the table presenting her work. So, I mean, it was an amazing experience for her. And she went on to get some work experience at PlayStation in Liverpool, which we helped with. And then she only messaged us about 2 months ago on LinkedIn saying she's at Durham University doing computer science. She set herself up as a freelancer, and that has taken 4-5 years to get to that spot. But the fact that it all started with that program that we were testing in 2016, and now we're seeing people like Beth actually or almost in the sector, it's just incredible, really. And we've got many stories like this as well. I won't go into them all, but this is definitely the most rewarding bit of leading an organisation like this. So I've touched a little bit on this. 2020 was a crazy year for everyone, wasn't it? And it meant that we had to completely pivot the business. So we quickly adapted our face-to-face programs. We did this all within about 6 weeks, and we started delivering online last May. We evolved our membership offer to organisations and consulted with them all the way, and made sure that we could still deliver on the projects that we were working with our partners, because that funds all of our work. We reduced all costs across the business and then focused on team culture. Last year really wasn't about finances for us. We wanted to try and survive. That was the main thing. We wanted to break even. And the most important thing for us, it was being able to support our team. So thankfully we were able to do that, and actually we've never been in a better place. We're all so connected and we're working brilliantly at home. And I think having focused on the team culture has been the most important thing that most important decision that we have ever made, actually, because it doesn't matter how much money you make in an organisation, it's the team that kind of make it, especially in a social enterprise. I've touched on reach, so you can see it visually. I love maps like this because we reached someone near Aberdeen up there in Scotland, which was mad, but it was amazing. And then these are some of the companies that we work with. So as you can see, like they're a bit there's a broad range there of businesses that use technology within their organisations. So PlayStation might be an obvious one, but then like Liverpool Football Club probably isn't, when they've got 400 people working in the tech team in Liverpool. So when we say that to a young person, they all know what Liverpool Football Club is, but they don't associate it with technology. So it's been a really nice way of exploring technology with a young person by delivering projects with brands that they recognise like this. So yeah, that's some of them. We're really passionate about our charity partners. So Chain is a domestic violence charity which does amazing work globally to support women facing domestic violence and abuse. So we support them by giving them some of our funding, a contribution basically, and the same with the Black curriculum as well, who do amazing work trying to get Black history taught within the curriculum here in the UK. And then Prince's Trust we've worked with throughout the pandemic to help with accessibility. So we try and work in lower income areas and schools. So a lot of the time a young person might not have access to a device or internet access. So we work with the Prince's Trust to try and get them access to a device so they can do our programs. That's been one of the challenges as well throughout the pandemic, is getting people actually online so they can actually receive education. So many people in the UK have gone without their education over the last year because they haven't got access, which is awful. So we try and do what we can there. And then the vision for us and the future. So I said we're developing an e-learning platform that should be launched in April. We also have an ambassador program that we've just launched again. So we had a mentoring one that's kind of changed now to an ambassador one. I'll get Jazz to send you all a link if you're interested in supporting that, because it's free to sign up, and even if you've got like 30 minutes across the year, then we'd love for you to be part of that to inspire more people. And in particular, if you're all in UX, that's amazing, because that's something that we deliver through the programs that we teach. And then, yeah, we want to strengthen our communities across the UK as well. That's kind of our 3 focuses for this year. And that's it. How did I do?
10 out of 10. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Can I ask you just to stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
We can see everyone on the same screen. It's a little bit easier.
There you go.
Fantastic. Let me just change my viewport a second. So to gallery. Lovely. Thank you very much for that, Chelsea. That was that. Well, there's a lot of that stuff that I know about, but it's nice to hear it straight from your own mouth, and actually where you guys have come in the last 12 months. I remember chatting to you around about not far off this time last year, actually, and you were, talking about the things that you were facing, and I've sort of watched from the sidelines, just been constantly impressed by how you've evolved things. So I think it's a credit to the whole group. Hopefully we've got a few questions floating around, because I think that was quite a fascinating story, and it's something that it certainly interests me. So has anyone got anything they'd like to ask Chelsea at all?
I'll shoot one if I'm all right to do so. So the thing which intrigued me, again, probably because I'm coming from the design side of things, was when you obviously step things up in terms of changing the brand. I'd like to know, because obviously like now it went to something like a bit more mature than it was by the looks of things, and looks really refined now. The color palette looks lovely, like the slides look excellent. Like, what were you looking for from the agency in terms of, because you said you worked with a creative agency to develop that, right?
Yeah.
Can you just talk us through how that worked? Because I think that's obviously laid on like a whole level of professionalism to the work, and helps get across that obviously that important message that you are effectively delivering. So what type of stuff were you looking for from the agency, and kind of how long did it take to develop that brand, especially as someone who's a leader and it's kind of your baby and you're trying to repackage it? How did you keep the things that you wanted within that relationship?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I'm trying to remember how that happened 4 years ago. But Uniform, if any of you know of them, they're such an amazing organization, and I've always respected their work. So they cost a bloody fortune. So my first thing that I had to do was negotiate the shit out of that to be like, look, we cannot. I think it was meant to cost 16 grand, and I had no money. I was like, my previous community, the Liverpool Girl Geeks, I paid my mate in a burger to like do that logo. and then they were asking for 16 grand. But I really got to know them quite well. And then I think we got them down to about 6 grand. And we were making money at that time. And we also got them, like, we got, about 6 grand. And we got them to, we could pay monthly for that as well. So I think the whole process took about 6 months. And you know what? It was well worth it, because I didn't really need to do any of the work in terms of, that thinking piece. I think the way that they did that with us through the focus groups with the young people, and getting us in to really try and get the thoughts out of my head around what I wanted it to be. I think I probably just went in saying I want something that is really edgy, quite cool, quite modern, but it'll last for a while. Because them colours were made, like, and all of that brand was created in 2000, at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. And I think it's lasted so well. We're adapting it a tiny bit at the moment, mainly because for accessibility on our new platform, because we need different colours and stuff slightly. But yeah, I think it's lasted really well. And what they did, they presented to us like 3 kind of ideas quite early on, and got a feel for what we liked. And I think it was between like 2. I loved the aspect of, you know, the hair, and it's like the scrolly kind of writing. I was like, oh well, we could personalize that. And I think we combined that idea with another idea, and then they kind of come up with that, and it was gorgeous. I just loved it. But I think the best thing about it was the focus groups with the young people. I think that took about 2 hours, but they had different areas in the office that they did that. So they had loads of different name ideas that we'd come up with, and they'd come up with on the wall, and we got them to put stickers on the ones that they liked the best. And InnovateHer got chosen, which we were surprised about, because they were young girls, and InnovateHer seemed quite mature, as you say. So we were made up with that, because that was the best one for us as well. And then they had like loads of nice mood boards, and it ranged from very simple kind of artwork to a bit crazy, like mad colours. And they went for one nearest to the crazy, but actually surprised us in some of the elements that they picked. So that was an amazing process. And yeah, Uniform definitely led on that, and did a really good job of getting that out of my head. I think as a creative person anyway, it was probably easier for them to work with me, because I could lay out some of the ideas as well that I kind of had. So
it's interesting, that story, actually, because it's largely like very similar journeys everyone will experience across design, from UX or any kind of design, really. So I suppose from people who are on this call here looking to get into it, as I suppose a client, what was the most compelling part of the process that you enjoyed the most? As in, like, yeah, that actually, I won't elaborate, that's the question.
I think it was just the focus group, you know. The best thing actually within that was that we had a load of brands on the wall, like Nintendo, Apple, New Look, like all of these brands that we thought that they might like. And then it was a completely different than what we thought. And now actually, so we're doing a massive piece of work at the moment around this e-learning platform. We got a bit of funding, and we had to do loads of research with young people. And that's been really great to do that, because for the user experience on the site. So I haven't been working on the project much, but we've surveyed them in different groups. So we've had like a group focus group, we've had one-to-ones, we've had surveys, and we've got a real mix of feedback throughout all of that. And the things that the next generation like now, I've never heard of. So the brands we were asking about in 2016, they all had heard of, and we'd heard of the things that they'd liked. But now, don't have a clue. I like the names that they come up with now, I'd never heard of them. So it's completely changed. I think it's a much harder process actually now of trying to analyse what they like. But
probably in some respects a much more rewarding process as well, because you're learning things yourself, and it's a good sort of nice reciprocation, I suppose, in a process.
Yeah, and you know, that's definitely been the best thing about creating any project at InnovateHer, is actually working with the young people on it, because it feels more rewarding that you feel more confident in the product, because it's based off of what they've told you.
Great. I've got a question actually from someone in the group actually who wanted to ask a couple of questions. I've tried to phrase them in a way based on what you've talked about today. But someone's looking to sort of get involved in some sort of volunteer work, some sort of non-profit. What would be your advice as to how to find something that's rewarding to them?
If I don't know whether there's any like sites that have like volunteering experience on, but if you just type in ambassador scheme or mentoring scheme in the UK. There's a few that come up because we've just done some research on it. So we just launched ours, for example. So we've looked at various ones, but things like Code Club and the STEMettes and the Girls Network as well. They're all looking for mentors all the time. And obviously, yeah, there's our ambassador scheme, which is a good one.
Cool. And
Can I ask a question, please?
no, Kevin. You know what happened last time I asked a question? Yeah, go on, mate. Fill your boots.
It's quite a. It's just it's more of a blunt question, really, Chelsea. But like, how does your company earn money?
I've heard that one before. So we have 3 partner packages for organisations. So all of the organisations that were in that slide, they all pay an annual fee to be part of that package. So that keeps all of the costs down for any school or child that wants to have access. And in return, we give them all of the inclusion kind of consultancy and access across the year that we deliver for them. So yeah, that's how. We also have a few grants because we're a social enterprise, so we can also apply for grants, but we try not to be over reliant on them, and we focus on the corporate businesses for the funding.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So so that's good.
Yeah, it's hard because social enterprises often rely on like a lot of volunteers and run off actually very little funding, but we've never really wanted to do that. We've not, although we've got an ambassador program, which, you know, is partly volunteers. We don't have volunteers in our kind of core team or anything like that. So we have to make money as a normal business would. And we're quite.
You say, do you do about 40 hours a week then in this business? Is it a full-time job?
Yeah. Probably a bit more than that sometimes.
So you have to
I try and have a work-life balance, but this feels like my life quite often, but it's very rewarding, so I don't mind actually.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Can I ask, Chelsea, sorry, based on what you mentioned there with your work with the organisations in that programme, and they pay a fee and they get consultancy, right, off the back of that, what does that consultancy look like? Because I'm just interested, because I used to work for a diversity sort of training company, and there's obviously so many challenges that come with that kind of work and the kind of backlash and resistance and everything like that. What does your sort of approach look like with the organisations, and what kind of challenges have there been?
So we always say that we're not a recruitment agency, not a standard consultant, but we're here to inspire change within organisations. So also we're not there to judge any organisations either. So we kind of state that from the get-go, but any organisation that joins us does this thing called a diversity and inclusion health check, and we assess the organisation with alongside them, and then create a bit of a roadmap on what they could do, like recommended by us throughout the year with InnovateHer in terms of diversity and inclusion. So we look at things like leadership, recruitment, culture, fairness. So there's things that they could do very quickly, like they might pledge to not join an event panel if it was, say, an all white male panel, and that's kind of like a pledge that they could commit to straight away. But then there's things like, or have 50% of your board female, then that's obviously not going to happen in a year, and we know that change is incremental and it's going to take years for that. So we kind of are there as a bit of a support and backbone to an organisation to say, you know, come on, you can do better, and here's how. So then we do bi-monthly events where we bring in leaders to talk about different aspects of inclusion. So we might look at unconscious bias one month, we might look at assertiveness and confidence in another, we might look at gender neutral language. We're doing a design for women one actually in May. So it's completely kind of broad, but as I said, it's there really to inspire them to go off and do more of this learning themselves. Yeah, it's quite nice. It's a nice network because they all kind of learn from each other as well when they join, and that's one of the purposes of it. Giles, you were part of it for a while, weren't you?
Yes, yeah, I was getting involved as much as I possibly could do, and when I was at my old company, and I'm obviously I lost my job there,
Yeah.
and I couldn't fulfil the obligation I would have liked to have done, which would have been last April. But I think it's still important for the company, for InnovateHer to surround themselves with the right people who still want to contribute where they possibly can. And I think it's a great setup.
Thank you. Did I answer your question there, Josie?
Yeah, that's great. I guess one more quick one, just off the back of that, with the you referred to it, and I can't remember what it was, like a health check.
Yeah, health check.
Yeah. How did you devise that? Was that kind of like research based? Was it evidence based, or like how did you come up with that?
It was more research based, I guess. Myself and Joe, because we'd been working in this industry for a few years, recognised what the best companies were doing in terms of all of those things I said, like leadership and whatnot. So it's basically like a huge not a huge document, it's like 4 or 5 page document which says, all of these things, and you have like a yes, this is in progress, no, we haven't looked at this yet, and whatnot, and then we would fill all of that in. But yeah, it came from analysing all of the organisations that are doing really well. Why are they doing really well? Because they've got all of this in place. And then looking at a number of articles and speaking to people that were working within inclusion to try and really get it right. And we've amended it so many times. There's always so many more things that we need to add to it. But it's great because we have these conversations with organisations and they're like, yeah, we're doing a great job. And then we sit there with them, go through a health check, and then they're like, oh no, I was like, can you explain your values or culture, whatever? And then they can't, and then they're like, oh, I think we need to do work here. So it's like a great conversational piece as well. And it can be quite difficult at times because someone can really get their back up and say, and think that we're really judging them. So like that's been the hardest thing because we're not like that at all. We're trying to help. But yeah, it's a great tool.
That's great, thank you.
Lovely. Mindful of time, I want to ask one question and then I will ask if anyone else has got anything to ask. And again, it's someone else asked me to ask a question to you. When you eventually made the decision to effectively career switch, I suppose, and start this whole thing up, what sort of fears and initial struggles did you mentally overcome, and how did you do that?
It's weird because when I was younger, I didn't really care about the situation. I've never had money, right? I've never had money, and so like I've never really been paid any decent amount in any job to have savings or to even recognise what the risk was. Or I also didn't have any caring responsibilities. Haven't still, and didn't have children. I wasn't caring for anyone, so it was quite easy for me to just say, look, I'm gonna quit my job and go freelance, because that's what I was doing whilst I was running Liverpool Girl Geeks, just to give it a bit more time. So actually I was quite unafraid then, and I think it's been since, it's like that's when I've come up with a number of challenges, and that's just come from like building the organisation and having responsibility, like a team to pay for, and you're paying their rent and mortgage now, but as I said, like having them advisors around has really helped that. But I think as a woman and someone that looks quite young, I think there's been a lot of people that have not, like, they've not thought that I could do what I say I'm going to do, or they've just judged me quite quickly, until I've told them about the experiences that I've had, or, you know, how well the business has gone. Even they wouldn't even think that I could have a successful business because they judge quite quickly, or I have been judged in the past. So yeah, it's, and you know, I always get imposter syndrome as well. So like I was saying a few weeks ago, I was like, whoa, like, because I was doing a whole new partner package and we pivoted the business and all this. I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. And like, because sometimes, even though you have got advisors around you and whatnot, you are kind of doing it alone as well. You don't have a manager or anyone to kind of give you that feedback. So it's actually, the challenges have come more recently and over the years rather than then. Okay. I was much more carefree. I've got much more responsibility now, so it's harder.
I think we all were back then, a long time.
Yeah.
Never mind. Okay, everyone, a couple of minutes left. So unless there's an urgent question, I'll let Chelsea vacate. And yes, Kate.
I'm just interested to know, because back in the day when I was at school, we never had anything like Facebook or Instagram. Has social media affected how the girls, have they taken more of an interest because social media is around and they're interactive with tech more? Does that have an impact?
Not before we get involved. So it's weird because they can naturally do technology and use technology from very young age, but they don't associate that with working in tech.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we tell them, is like, when you're watching Netflix, there's thousands of people working behind that to make it seamless, the experience. And they're like mind blown. They can't believe it. And the same with like all of these social media apps. So actually it's the context that I think needs to be embedded into like the curriculum, and teachers need to be talking about, you know, like their life and what they can use, but in the context of actually work, which is not happening at the moment, but that's what we're trying to do.
But that was the same at university and school. You never really knew what you wanted to do because you couldn't visualize it.
Exactly, yeah.
There's not enough of it in your journey,
yeah. So that's why we use like role models to kind of bring it to life. We talk about technology in loads of various ways, so that they can see where they could kind of fit in there. Because, you know, technology is in every role now as well. Every single job will require tech and digital skills in some format, and that even blows their mind. They don't even realize that half the time. So it's, yeah, there needs to be a lot of initiatives, I think, like ours, going into schools, telling them and teaching them.
Definitely. I remember having a chat with Samina, who's one of the group, last year, similar sort of thing, going in and trying to explain to younger girls that, like you just said then, you say, well, who do you think comes up with Spotify? How do you think that's done? How do you think Netflix is done? How do you think all these things are done? And it's not just, you know, a load of old coders sitting in the bedrooms eating Twiglets or whatever. You know, it's quite cool stuff to get involved in. You know, and tech is cool. Basically, it's not geeky. And the people, I think certain generations forget that. But then you say that, like you said, why is Netflix seamless? You know, where do you think all these random algorithms and stuff come up from? On Spotify, for example, you know, it's great. But no, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I've just put the ambassador scheme link in.
Just noticed.
If anyone's interested in that, you are very welcome to sign up, even if you don't want to get involved in any activities at the moment, and you'll get kind of integrated into the newsletter and stuff. And if you ever want to do it, then we would love to have you. So thank you so much, Giles, for inviting me.
Thanks for coming and giving up your valuable time. It's much appreciated.
It's lovely to meet you all. Good luck on your journey. Very exciting.
And as ever, I always encourage everyone to make connections over LinkedIn with the people who have done a presentation. So if you're comfortable, expect a few inundations on your inbox. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Add me.
Lovely.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Cheers,
Thank
Chelsea.
you,
Take care.
Chelsea. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Take care.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Oh, everyone's going. Who wants to stick around? They can do. You don't want to, you don't have to. Let me just stop recording.